What would Tolkien have to say about the current state of the franchise his work has become? Well, based on his own words, I think we might have an idea. With the Hunt for Gollum project well underway and a potential sequel announced, fans like myself are feeling quite a bit of trepidation. For many, the people helming these projects give reason for hope that they will be faithful, but ultimately, the nature of their premises have led most fans of the book and the original films to question the motives behind them. See, the Lord of the Rings films were such masterpieces because the creators weren't interested in telling their own story. They merely wanted to tell Tolkien's story. However, with these projects, the creators are taking briefly mentioned off-screen events, chapters omitted from the films for good reason, and minor characters from the appendices and stretching them into entire films as if in desperation to come up with any possible legal way to squeeze a little more money out of people's love for the original trilogy. It feels desperate, and the best case scenario is that we get a small-scale, uninspired little nostalgia trip that doesn't do anything to honor or offend what came before. The question some will pose is whether Tolkien himself would take issue with that, and I think we can find the answer in his own thoughts on a similar project he worked on himself. If you didn't know, Tolkien started to write a sequel to The Lord of the Rings, what he described as a simple thriller that would uncover a Sauron-worshipping cult in Gondor a couple hundred years after the events of The Lord of the Rings. However, after writing the first chapter, he decided it would undermine the finality and hope of the original story. In his own words, he said it was simply not worth doing. And this was an actual story he was talking about, not a collection of references to better films incapable of standing on their own because their story is entirely a filling in of the tiny gaps left by the monolith that came before. So if Tolkien's own sequel idea wasn't worth completing, what would he say about these desperate cash grabs? And if their once faithful creators have strayed so far from Tolkien's own attitudes toward his writing, what does that signal for their products?